All right, I believe we're live now.
Oh, are we
So,
live?
yeah, we're live now. So, hello everybody, and welcome to today's live session brought to you by Line for Dev. I'm Rahima Wasti, your host, and it's my pleasure to introduce our special guest, Philip Cutting, over here, founder of Line for Dev. Today, we're diving into a crucial topic for anyone navigating the job market, overcoming interview challenges. Whether you're a fresh graduate or a seasoned professional, interviews can be daunting. So, we'll unpack common interview pitfalls and provide insights on how to prepare yourself for success best. So, Philip, let's start with the basics. What do you think is the biggest mindset challenge that candidates face when walking for an interview?
Okay, so great question. I believe that the biggest mindset challenge often comes from a couple of perspectives. One is there's always some self doubt, right? And the other is that we really have to be the best fit for everybody. And
Mhm.
this last one, it's not true, right? You have to be the best fit for that place that you want to work at, and they have to be the best fit for you, right? So it's a two-way street, right? And
Absolutely.
yeah, and as far as the self-doubt, right? Don't worry about that. If you're there, let them choose to see if you're qualified or not, right? Don't go into it and look at all the stuff that's in the HR report that they want people with a master's degree and 10,000 years of experience and a million products released and all that stuff, right? A lot of the times the guys interviewing don't care about anything on those skill requirements, right? And sometimes they do, but a lot of times they don't. They're looking for something very specific, right? So many candidates need to walk into an interview all
Mhm.
without questioning their potential, right? If you're there, be fully focused, right? And this is going to help uh, dissuade that kind of uh, lack of confidence that your body will show off if you go in there with uncertainty, right? And it's um it's just important to remind yourself that you're there to see if you're a good fit, right? Hopefully you're not there to see if you can do the
Completely agree to
job.
that.
You
Yeah.
should you should know if you can do the job before you go to the interview, right? And again, don't believe they're looking for an astronaut, right? When a lot of times they really just need somebody who's cool, who can work with them, and so that they can enjoy working with, right? Just think about what you would feel like if you were the guy doing the interview and it was your business, right? Imagine yourself 4 or 5 years in the future or 10 years in the future interviewing the current you. What would you want to be, right? And you're going to chill out a lot when you think of it that way.
Yeah, definitely that you were talking basically about confidence. That confidence can definitely make all the difference. However, some candidates struggle with imposter syndrome. How can they tackle that before an interview?
Okay, imposter syndrome is tough, right? And what really makes it tough is that we have an internal voice that knows everything about us, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you can never conquer that voice unless you tame it, right? So the first thing is tame that wild monkey, get it off your back, and figure out what preparation you need to do to go into the interview with some confidence, right? When thoroughly preparing for an interview, research the company, right? And then you can uh, practice your responses ahead of time. You can ask yourself questions. I am just about to release a fun little fake interview I did with an AI version of Seth Godin, right? I'm probably gonna put it out tomorrow or something. You can do this conversation. You can go on ChatGPT, upload the LinkedIn bio of the company copy or even link the website and put in the job description and practice that interview before you ever get to it. So preparation is going to knock the heck out of any kind of imposter syndrome.
That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah, and then just you have to also acknowledge that everybody feels self-doubt at some point.
Yeah.
And this is just normal, right? There's adrenaline, there's ways to speak in public, right? There's things you can do to practice. One thing you can do, right? And it may feel silly, but just before your interview, go into the bathroom real quick when nobody else is there and do like 20 jumping jacks to kill down that adrenaline, right? Don't drink a lot of coffee in the morning, just little stuff, right? There's a lot of biology that goes into this kind of like these high stress situations. Think through that a little bit and know that you're a badass. Absolutely. And that's why you're applying for the job in the first place.
From this, I remember my first big interview. I basically had the classic imposter syndrome in there. And what helped me was practicing mock interviews with friends, which gave me the confidence to perform on the day. And speaking of such things, we're going to hop on to the other question. That is, speaking of preparation, what do you think are the must-dos when preparing for an interview?
Okay, so there are some critical keys to preparing well for an interview, right? First, research the company thoroughly, not just their website, but also what's in the news. Try to figure out what their culture is. Get to understand the industry that they operate in themselves, and get to know their who their key customers are, right? Who are they most proudly currently serving? And a lot of times they'll put this on their website. Our biggest customers are these guys, and we're currently serving these guys, and we are amazing, right? Look at who gave them testimonials, right? And this will help you get an understanding of the culture, their expectations, and the values that they're looking to put publicly, right? And if you know those, you can then practice some common questions and just do some interview practice, just like you did preparing for your first big job, right? And I would say don't memorize questions and answers, but think about what's the purpose of this question and what's an honest answer from your perspective, and then you can flow with it. And sometimes we're scared when we get questions to say it back or to say part of it back. And I'd have to say, like, if you feel like you didn't understand the question, don't feel like you have to BS it, right? Go back and push back on the question. Try to make sure you understand it. Say it back in another way, right? And just get comfortable with that kind of conversation. One of the most powerful things you can do to build rapport, and speaking of, you should read the book Never Split the Difference before going into interviews. I think it's a great book for this kind of thing, but by Chris Voss. But get a little bit of rapport with the interviewer, and sometimes it's like restating the question back to them in another way, right? And this is particularly it's particularly powerful in two cases. One is kind of like in the beginning, if it's a complex question and it shows that you're listening. And the other case it's really good is if they're kind of messing with you, right? If you feel like they're like awkward or it's a weird question, right? And you want to try to get to, you just got that feeling like there's more to this question than is obvious, right? You can come back and say, like, say I said, Rahima, what was the scariest situation you were ever in when you were studying for marketing? Right. And that's a question for me.
Right. Yeah, obviously anyone can ask. So there can be a lot of answers to that, but the scariest part was basically the field work. It was the scariest thing for me to do. So yeah, that's one thing.
Okay, and that's a great answer.
Since being an introvert, that is a part of my nature, and I have to work a lot, and I have to go out in the field and talk to people for marketing and stuff. So yeah, that was something that I was scared of since a very long time. I still do a bit.
Uh-huh.
So,
Okay, terrific. And by the way, very
mm,
good answer. Now, here's the one thing that could have made it a little bit better for you. If you had said, oh, "Wow, that's an intriguing question. Can you ask me
mm,
why you're asking that?" Right? Well, like what made you ask that question?
yeah, question on to
That
another.
yeah, and then you get them to talk a little more and you're not turning the question on them, but you're maybe getting them to reveal something about themselves. And now, if they do reveal something
Yeah.
about themselves, then you can mirror that a little bit. And you
Mhm.
now have instant connection. Even if you don't have the exact same thing, you at least heard his story or her story, right? And then you can
Mhm.
say, wow, I had a similar situation. Or, yeah, for me, it was like this. And I really struggled with that. And I didn't want to. But then I started doing this and it got better.
Yeah,
So,
being relatable is something that helps.
yeah, yeah. Anytime you can find a good question that's a little bit
Mhm.
outside of the box, push back on that and ask them like, why is this interesting to you? Because when I hear this question from you, I feel like there's something in your experience that this is important to you about. And then and then you can then you build like rapport and connection. So when there's strange questions like that, feel free to push back. Now you can't do it every time because then it feels like you're being elusive and it's too much, right? But get a couple of those out, especially early on, to figure out some of their life story and how you can connect with them, and it's going to help you out through the rest of the questions. And a lot of times you may find this early on in the interview if they allow you to do a little bit of um, kind of introductory banter and talk between each other, right? But sometimes, a lot of times, they'll just, especially if they're doing a lot of interviews, they'll kind of just jump right into it, and you start to feel like they're mechanically going through the process, and you're
Yeah,
just another number. You don't want to get into that scheme, and one of the ways to get out of that is not to be perfect, but to get to know them a little bit and to see what's important to
exactly.
them in
That's a
the
pattern that
business.
they follow. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. So, Phil, we all know that the tell me about yourself question that is often very tricky. And how should
Mm-hmm.
candidates approach this question to make a good impression for yourself?
So it's the classic question, right? And there's so many
Mhm.
different ways to answer it, right? For me, the best way to answer this is to create a narrative, and it should be short, right? About yourself that highlights your skills, your achievements, that focuses on your journey, but it relates it back to what's important to them, and it shows how your growth and your journey is similar to either the way this company grew up or the values that they're looking for, because this question is more about how do I connect with you, right? What's in your life that's connected to us and meaningful to us, right? It's not, hey, I want to know you do beautiful long walks on the beach and you love cats, right? You can sneak that stuff in
Definitely, that is
along, yeah,
mhm.
right. Work if those things are important to you, right, and it's somehow important to them, you can work that into the
Mhm.
conversation during the conversation. But this isn't the place for that. This is where you're kind of talking yourself up a little bit, you're relating to them, and you're kind of showing a little bit of fun about being able to open up and to share something slightly vulnerable about yourself, and it's a chance for them to connect
Absolutely.
with you. They may not realize that, right? They may just think it's a classic question, they should ask it, and maybe they're just being polite, right? Because everybody asks this. But to have fun
Yeah.
with it, make it about
Yeah.
them, not about you. And you need to practice this before you go into this interview. You should know this question, right? And there's 100 different ways of this, asking the same question, and just preparing for it this way is going to help you answer a lot of other questions too.
And that's terrific. Now let's talk about body language. How important is it in an interview setting, and what are some common mistakes people make while having an
I
interview?
Yeah, I think body language is probably 90% of the conversation. It's the most critical thing. It lets people see if you're sincere, or it makes people feel if you're sincere, if you're confident, um, if you are truthful, right? So it's like it is the most important thing. And there's lots of ways that you can make yourself feel more open and welcoming and even excited, right? So keep an eye on your body language. Just keep in mind on your body language. And this is something you need to practice with your friends beforehand. And it's kind of hard to practice, right? Because this is one of those times when you're going to have a lot of anxiety and you're naturally going to soothe yourself. You're going to maybe even cover your face, right? You're going to do those giveaways that make it look a little bit uncomfortable. But keep some simple rules. Make sure you're breathing calmly. If you start to get nervous, right, while they're asking the question, do just a little bit of box breathing, right? While they're talking and you're listening, it's going to give you a chance to listen, and it's going to help get you back under control, right? Don't make it super obvious because it'll be weird, but just kind of try to do whatever it takes. Keep eye contact. Shake the hand firmly. Don't cross your arms or your feet, right? Maybe you can cross your feet if it's under the desk, but I would even try not to. Don't cross your arms. Don't put your arms up on your head, right? Don't show them the guns unless it's a joke and you know, you're talking about the gym or something like that, right? Or an embarrassing story, right? Weave the body language and the signals that you're given into the conversation. And also, don't try to fill empty space with words.
Yeah, that's one thing that we should be careful about.
Yeah. And smile, guys. Like, especially older guys, right? Like, a lot of this, you know, doesn't seem like I'm giving advice to older guys, right? But they also go through career changes, older guys and women, but especially older guys, right? Where they're professional and they have a lot on their mind and they're really thought their things, you know, that face can sag, and you can have that resting bee face, right? You guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right. So, but smile some, especially if you're older. Make sure you really focus on smiling, or if you look a little intimidating, right? If you have like an intimidating presence, and if it's a woman and she's looking a little bit nervous, right? Give her a little bit more space. Make sure you maintain that big smile. Maintain not strict eye contact, right? But have eye contact that looks at their eyes, may shift around their face a little, right? You might be thoughtful about things, right? But whatever you do, like one of the easiest things, try to keep that smile.
Yeah,
and a
that's
real smile,
something
one that goes to the eyes.
makes the other person welcoming. Yeah. So basically, non-verbal cues. These are non-verbal cues can make or break impression you leave. Philip, what about when things go wrong? Let's say candidate stumbles over a response or forgets something important. How should they handle that?
Oh, sure. In every conversation, even in these interviews, I say things that are wrong that I'm like, oh, dear God, did I say that out loud? Right? It's okay.
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing wrong with saying, wow, did I just say that out loud? Look, I didn't mean it like that.
That makes it right?
Yeah, right. You know, try to not bring in too much sarcasm to an interview, right? But if you stumble, don't panic. Take a breath, smile, kind of laugh at yourself, right? Sometimes a little deprivating humor can go a long ways. Ask for a second. Ask if you can just, can I rephrase that? Right? When I heard that, that sounded not like what I meant. Can I rephrase that, John? Right? Most interviews will appreciate that you're honest, that you're catching yourself, that you are not trying to push through the conversation when you know you messed up. And if it's a longer interview, they might be looking for this. They might be trying to see, are you honest? Are you composed? Are you fun? Most interviewers,
Yeah,
they're just
absolutely.
looking for a connection. If they can like you a little bit, they know you're nervous, right? They know you're going to be flustered. That's okay. They're just trying to see, do they like you enough to spend 8 hours a day with you plus for a long, long time?
Yeah. That is something that's showing that you can recover from small mistake demonstrates great grace under pressure, a valuable quality in any workplace that is. So
By the
let's
way,
shift it to
um,
behavior. Yeah.
some people will intentionally make mistakes during interviews.
Okay. All
And
right. And
yeah, it's kind of an advanced technique, right? And if you do it
okay.
well, right, it makes you look not too polished. It makes you look real, right? So if you're
Okay.
good at interviews and you practice and you go in there and you feeling that you have control of yourself in that interview, don't be afraid
Mhm.
to make, a little fake mistake, right? It's
Yeah, that's only fun
it's a
sometimes.
it's a little bad, right? But it lets them see that you're a person also. So being too perfect isn't a lot of fun.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about it. So we should shift to behavioral interviews. My candidates struggle with the STAR method. Can you break it down for us?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. STAR stands for situation, task, action, results. And it's a simple framework to answer behavioral questions by providing concrete examples. For example, if they say, tell me about your time where you handled a challenge that really was hard for you, right? You would start by describing the situation, right? Start at that situation.
Mhm.
Then you explain the task that you needed to complete. Then talk about the actions that you took. And finally,
Okay.
share the result. Situation, task, action, result. I wish I could, you know what, guys in the audience, everybody, throw in the chat uh, a star example real quick, just one something fun
Yeah,
and practice this,
it's
right? You
fun
got to
too.
practice this.
So yeah, should we move on to the next question?
Yeah, let's go ahead and we'll
Yeah,
review later if anybody was brave enough to do a star example.
absolutely. So Phil, what about the tough questions that we've been asked in interviews, like dealing with gaps in employment or tricky salary negotiation? How should candidates approach these? Because it happens a lot of times, and
Mm.
we do not know how to answer that since it gets a little bit awkward for us as well.
Oh, sure. So for gaps in employment, just be honest. Explain briefly
Mhm.
what the situation was, but focus on what you did during that time, right? For mothers that are coming out of the workforce, super common. Maybe they had a 10-year gap, right? Or a 3-year gap.
Mhm.
An 18-month gap is not uncommon, right? For any mother, or even a 6 month. I see a lot of mothers, they take a 6 months off, they get crazy. They're happy being a mother, but they got to get out of the house now, right? And
Yeah,
that's a great
it
story,
happens.
right? I'm a mother, I have a kid, and I wanted to be that stay-home mother that was a super mom. I couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
And I just tried taking my kid to the daycare, and my kid loved it. And now I'm excited to be at work, right?
So
Who's going to
yeah.
say, oh no, what are you doing? Right? Even if it's like, hey, I was volunteering, I was working on my skills, I was doing a pet project. I had to deal with a death in the family. I was depressed, and I just wanted to kill myself, and I had to take 2 years off, pull myself together. I did a bunch of skill work. I found my center again, and I had to rebuild my confidence. Or, you know, my wife left me, and I was crushed, and I had to just rebuild it. I actually got a job doing horse manure repair, right? Whatever it is,
Okay. Yeah.
you know, and some things you can do if it's that. Keep it short, keep it honest, right? Explain if you learned anything, explain why you're not doing that anymore, right? Maybe iterate why you're back into the workforce and why you're excited to work with them. And maybe if there's some good stories behind it, share that, right? Maybe there's growth.
Yeah,
Maybe you hit the bottom of the barrel, you were under a bridge, and you were like, wow, I saw the light.
that's perfect. And let's not forget about the video interviews as well. With remote work on the rise, what unique challenges do candidates face in virtual interviews and how can they overcome them?
Oh, virtual interviews come with so many challenges, right? Know that it's not so warm, right? So
Yeah.
they're certainly more intense. You can't shake that hand. You can't. They can't see your excitement. They can't see that you smell good, right? They don't have any of those normal cues they would in the same room. So what do? You make sure your technology is up to date. You make sure that in the back of your wallpaper, it's not a, if you can avoid it, it's not a bed. Or if there is a bed, that bed is made. It's not sloppy. There's not a bunch of cobwebs, not dirt. That you have a decent camera, that you sound good, that your software actually works, and you've installed it ahead of time. If it's going to be a interview and it's your first one and you haven't used that software before, ask them to give you the link to the software, or just do a practice, call the secretary, right, or somebody, and ask them, or the HR, and say, hey, I want to make sure this is working on my computer. I would be so embarrassed if it didn't. Can we just do a 1 minute connection to make sure it's working and my voice is happening, right? And then you can focus on the challenges of building rapport and all that stuff I said in the beginning, where you mirror some of the conversation, you kind of reflect some questions back into them to get more details about why they're asking that, not and how, getting them to relate more to you, getting them to open up to you. Anything like that, way more critical. On top of that, any facial expressions 10 times more
Exactly.
powerful than it would. They can't see your hands in general, right? It's awkward to put your hands up over your
Yeah.
head. So maybe you sit further back and you can use some body language. Body language between like your chin and your waist is pretty appropriate.
Yeah.
And just make sure that you're close enough to your microphone or whatever. Consider a microphone. If you're doing an interview, a $68 microphone. This one's not 68, but there's a lot of magic in some fairly inexpensive microphones. That's going to make you sound warmer. It's going to make you look more professional, more serious, right? Just anything you can do
Definitely. That's
to,
what it is.
yeah, preparation 10 times more important than it would. Make sure you're in a quiet place. Make sure the kids aren't screaming, with my three boys. And it's even more important to kind of exaggerate the energy some. And if you can, make
Yeah.
sure that you're not just talking with a single smooth voice that's going to make them fall asleep the whole time. Vary it up, bring more energy and back it down. And when you have something important to say, bring down the volume, get close and lean in some and say, yeah, this was a hard experience for me. And this is why it was like this. And then it's like, or even it's something exciting. Yeah, bring up the volume, do that inclination, right? You may think that you're being way over the top, but what you're really doing is making up for just not being present, where they can't see that 90% of body language that they would get in every situation if they were there in front of you. So believe me, you might feel like you're like way over, but you're really just going like an extra 10% over, which is out of character for you. It takes a little practice. Try it, right? Do this interview, record yourself, do a Zoom call with your friends, right? You can do 40-minute free Zoom calls. Just do some banter with your friends before the online interview and see how you sound. I know it sounds, if you haven't gotten used to the sound of your voice yet, it can be terrifying and awkward and embarrassing. Don't worry about that. Know that you sound different to people anyways. It's good to get used to that, right? But listen to that as you're somebody else and just say, okay, I'm going to critique myself and I'm looking for energy. I want to see how I sound, and it's going to be amazing. You want an exercise that I saw from one of my online mentors that I love and adore? And I'm going to try to find his name real quick. what he says, I think his name is Vox. What he says is to go and record yourself talking for 5 minutes. Tell about your pets. Tell about the news. Tell about how you went to college. Share some stories about what makes you important. Do some practice questions. Talk about the anything that you can just for 5 minutes, and it doesn't have to be super amazing, right? The guy's name is Vin Gang, Vinh Giang. He's also a magician, but he talks about
Okay.
these things. And sorry, guys, I just want to make sure you don't think that's mine. But he's also a great reference for these kind of things. If you're going to do online interviews, it's all in the voice, it's all in your face, it's your smile. Make sure you're smiling big. Look at your body language when you're doing this. There's more advanced tips, right? If you really want to, if you're older, right now, if you're a young person and you're going for a beginner job, you don't have to do a lot of this stuff that I'm talking about. And maybe you shouldn't, because you may sound really too kind of polished, right? But if you want to go from a beginner position to start off as a more intermediate or senior position, these tips will help you get there quick, right? Now do that 5-minute recording. Now send it, not just listen to it, not just listen to it without looking. Watch yourself without hearing. Watch yourself and listen at the same time. Pay attention to body language. Pay attention to your facial expressions, right? And take all that in. Now, what you do is you take that recording of the voice and you send it to a speech therapist, either a speech therapist or somebody who teaches English or whatever your language as a second language, and they will help give you some advice on how to make this communication style better. You may have to pay a couple $100. Totally worth it, right? Now, if you want to go one step further, take that, send to a psychologist, and have them look at your body language, have them critique your communication style, and see how they give them advice about general behavior. Again, this is Vin's advice. So, well, carried that too far.
Perfect answer to that. So we're finally moving to our other question. If a candidate feels they didn't perform well in an interview, is there anything they can do to salvage the situation afterwards?
So if you don't feel like you really performed in an interview, what I would do is I'd follow up with a well-written thank you card.
Okay.
Right? Something in the mail, something physical. Send in that card, put a little candy. Say, hey, it was a very pleasant experience. Thank you so much. There's some times in there I don't think I really shined, but I appreciate that you gave me your time, and hopefully I get to see you at the next stage of the interview. Send a similar email that's, hey, it was great. It's nice to work with you. I thought this was great. There was a couple times when I didn't think it was, I didn't answer very well. And if you'd like me to follow up more on any of those kind of particular topics, just let me know. Right. And these kind of like personal touches and thoughtfulness, it goes a really long way to show that you can communicate, that you're thoughtful. And it also shows that you're committed to being a professional. So one of the things that professionals do is they learn, they grow, they improve all the time. And especially if there's a skill in there that you're like, wow, I wish I knew how to do Excel formulas and I didn't, right? You can in there say, wow, this one question, it really stumped me. And you know what? Here's an example. I learned how to do it afterwards. And yeah, I'm so embarrassed, but I learned it now.
Yeah, that's great. So we're going to open to some audience now. We're going to have some questions from them they are eager to ask about. So how do you handle feedback or rejection after an interview?
I love feedback of all kinds. Now, if it's rejection, Okay, fine. You weren't their girlfriend, right, or boyfriend. Thank them. Say, you can come back and say, okay, cool. I see now's not the time and that I wasn't a right fit right now. But in the future, what could have I done or what can I do over the next couple years that would really make me a good fit for your culture and for your business? And if there is at some point something that comes up that's inside the business, because I really like your mission and this, I really like this. Like, don't say I just really like your mission. I really like that you guys go out of the way to save the whales. And what you did out there, this thing that you did inspired me, and I'm still wanting to work with you guys in the future. Let me know how to get there, and just think of me as something else comes up, right?
That's a perfect answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there something you want to add to it?
It Well, after that, I just kind of follow up with them and actually work on improving skills that you think it needs to be done. Now, if they're giving you a critique, if they're giving you feedback, this is often a chance for them to give one last chance to see if you're a fit, or they're comparing two people that are so close they don't know what to do, right? So they're just trying to say, hey, they may be challenging you. They may be trying to see if there's conflict or what your nature is, right? They may be pushing some buttons to try to see if you're really going to be somebody they want to have in the office with them, right? And just be yourself. Ask for that feedback, right? Take it, say, learn from it. Say, hey, cool, thanks. I'm going to learn from that. And I think I can improve on that and this, right? At the end, summarize that, say it back to them, and make sure that that's what they're saying. Because they may say, you may say, wow, I understand that because I'm an immature and I'm only 23 years old, I'm blonde, that you're really looking for somebody else that has this other characteristic, such as they're, whatever. And this is what you need. And because I couldn't perform in this, I just wasn't for you guys. Right. Now, if they take that and say, yeah, that's exactly right. You're sorry. You're no good for us. You weren't good. Right. Don't worry about that. You're out now. But they may come back and say, no, you misunderstand. I just want to know this. Right. It's a last chance for them to say, no, man, I actually like you, dude. You're so cool, chick. Like, I love you. I wish I could, hire you. But there's this one question that's burning in my mind you never answered. It's one last chance for them to do that.
All right. And there's another question for you. So, how can introverts or shy individuals perform well in the interviews?
Say the question again.
How can introverts or shy individuals perform well in the interviews? Because they face definitely a lot of things that other people won't.
Yeah. So I jive with this, right? I especially used to be very introverted, like stumbling over my words way worse than I do now. And it was terrible, right? And it was embarrassing for me, even in some cases. So know this, you're also interviewing them, right? So it's not that you're perfect or that you have to be all of that, right? There's a couple traps that introverts fall into, right? One is too much thinking. One is feeling like they're responsible to fill the silence. And, another one is that you're afraid of the judgment if you're just not perfect, right? And realizing that that's not the case, right? That you can then be more calm in yourself. Now, some things that introverts really struggle with is they have a lot of adrenaline, right? They may be very sensitive to environmental feedback, right? So they're going into this. Right. You might be sweating, your hand shaking and you're stressed out and it. Go and do some push-ups, do some jumping jacks, wash your face, right? Just burn off some of that adrenaline so that you can be more calm in the interview. Know that coffee is probably not a great idea for you. right? The know that maybe you shouldn't eat, or maybe you should just have some kind of like bread or toast or something that's very light on your belly. Maybe some avocado, right? Maybe a little bit of avocado bread. Come on. But know that the other person might be in the same position, and that lots of other introverts went through the same thing that you did, and guaranteed in today's culture, they're not going to eat you afterwards, right? You're all set. You know, my parents used to have the expression like, they're not going to kill you and eat you, right? So get over it, right? It's not going to be that bad. This was a joke from, I think, TV. But the just work through the anxiety a little bit, preparation, and try to make it a game. Also, do it a few times, right? Just do a bunch of interviews. Find the ones that you wouldn't take the job if they offered it to you. Do those interviews first.
Okay.
Right? Have some fun. Would help. Oh yeah, like go interview at the gas station.
Okay.
Right? Interview for bag boy or for a waiter, right? Or interview for an astronaut position. Right?
Okay.
Do something silly. Go have some fun about it. And then when you go for this, even as an introvert, when you go for the interview that you really care about, you're going to be like, oh, this wasn't as hard as going to be an astronaut.
Yeah, we can say that. So that works. And thank you so much, Phil, for these incredibly valuable insights. Before we wrap up, what are your final thoughts for those who might be feeling nervous about their upcoming interviews? Because there are a lot of people who are waiting for your advice on that.
My final thoughts are simple. Be prepared. Do your research. Be yourself. Be ready to be flexible and adaptable. Interviews aren't just about having the best answers to questions. A lot of the times they are trying to see if you're a good fit for them, if you're fun, if you're going to be welcome there, and if they're going to enjoy time with you. And sometimes hard questions aren't if you have the answers. It's not about having the perfect answer. Sometimes, especially in technical fields, it's how do you think? How do you work through a problem? So be calm and walk in with confidence, with a well-prepared mindset that you have the ability to do the job, even if you have to psych yourself out a little bit, right? Be prepared. Don't accept that astronaut job if you know you can't be an astronaut, right? Now they may go in there and may say, "You're amazing." I'm like, say, you know, I'm not quite ready for that, right? But you'd be surprised that with just a little bit of situational awareness, a little bit of being yourself, and with some grace, you're going to be way ahead. And remember, every interview is a learning experience, right? Like I said, go do some ones you don't care about. And even if you don't get the job, you walk away better if you took the time to do that process that we talked about. Thank them afterwards. Follow up with just a thank you, or why didn't I get, what would improve my chances to get this in the future if you didn't get that job that you really cared about. And if, look at it as just a growing experience. Everybody gets better the more interviews they do.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if you do not get the job, at the end you're definitely walking away with more knowledge and more experience afterwards. And those were great words to end on. Thank you so much, Phil, and thank you to everybody who joined. And we hope this session has helped you feel more prepared and confident as you approach your next interview. Until next time, take care and best of luck for your interviews.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Take care of yourself, Phil. Goodbye.
You too, dear. Ciao.